All right, so we're on. Mauro, you can continue.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our pre-departure webinar for 2017-2018 exchange season. So we have today with us all the standing committee that we have. So I am Mauro, your scoring director. Guys, introduce you, please, yourselves.
Pre-departure webinar for 2017.
So I guess we can continue with the introductions. I'm the person who's not the standing committee director here. I'm Andre, and I'm the vice president for capacity building.
I am Mauro, your scoring director.
Hello, guys. Somebody has.
Ella, turn off your sound.
It's not my sound. It's somebody else's.
Rodrigo,
Rodrigo, you have to mute your microphone while we speak. I'm sorry. Thank you. Hi, guys. I'm Ella. I'm your SCUF director this year.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jessica, and I'm the SCORP director.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carlos, and I'm SCORA director.
And hey, everyone. My name is Edij, and I'm the SCOMI director.
And we also have Rodrigo, our scope director, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jessica, and I'm the SCORP director.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carlos, and I'm SCORA director.
Hey,
Hey, everyone. My name is Edij.
what is happening?
Nothing.
Rodrigo, you have to switch off the YouTube because if you're listening to it at the
Switch
same time, it's
off
not
the
good.
YouTube.
Guys,
This is so.
Please.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jessica, and I'm the SCORP director.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carlos, and I'm SCORA director.
Hey, everyone. My name is Edij.
Turn off the
All right.
YouTube.
Mauro, please. It's okay. It's okay. Everything is fine. All right. My name is Rodrigo, and I'm your Scopy director. And we are more than happy after this amazing introduction, like crazy introduction, to receive all of you here in our webinar. So yeah, today we're going to discuss about the pre-departure training within FMSA. I am more than proud to mention that we have all these amazing people here tonight that already introduced themselves. Though, Tommaso, did you introduce yourself? Tommaso's not even here, so that's okay.
Here I am. Yeah.
And Andre.
Andre introduce himself, like in between, like. So let's start, okay?
Can I say just that I'm Tommaso? I'm the Scopy General Assistant and probably the least important person in the panel. But yeah, I'm here.
I wouldn't put it this way. You're like one of the most important, my friend. Don't worry. So yeah, everybody's seeing my screen, and then we're gonna start. Okay, my screen is there. This is our pre-departure training webinar. Everything you need to know. Basically, we're gonna start tonight talking about more than a sharing experiences moment. So, guys, can you please like mention about which kind of experiences within exchanges you guys had? Mauro, maybe you can start.
Yeah, sure. So basically, as somebody should know, I'm the scoring director, and I have been having the experience of both going on exchanges and preparing exchanges since I was a Lori, I was a Nori, and I also went to 4 exchanges. I went to 3 scope exchanges and went to 1 scoring exchange. I went to Malta, I went to Belgium, Austria, and Slovenia. So quite a few exchanges. And something that I would like to share is that For example, in my first exchange that I came to Europe for the first time in my life, so many things were so different from what I was used to. Like, for example, what it was considered polite and what it was impolite. So I think that's it. That's why, in my opinion, it's so important to have a pre-departure training, so you can know also, besides the academic part of what you study, also how to behave in a different area, in a different society. Guys, have you guys ever been on an exchange before? Any of you?
Well, I'm currently in one exchange at this moment, like right now.
Oh, really? Could you please elaborate?
Okay, so hi everyone again. My name is Carlos, and yeah. So right now I'm in my second month of exchange. So this is my second Scopy in a row, and I actually didn't have like exchanges before. Like I've never gone on an exchange in my life up till now. Ironic, being 4 years a Leo before, I've never gone into an exchange. So definitely something I wanted to go. So I'm currently in Barcelona. Doing a OB/GYN, very scorelicious, of course. I need to mix stuff somehow, because if not, it wouldn't count. And I wouldn't, honor the square angels, and everybody would be ashamed of me. So of course I need to do it OB/GYN. And I'm having a blast, actually. And last month I was also in Spain, in Valencia, doing another exchange. So yeah, that is my experience so far.
Thank you.
Cool.
All right, maybe I can go next. Apart from doing an Erasmus exchange last year, I also did Scopy and Scory exchanges throughout my IFMSA life. And for me, it was really also about not only getting to know other cultures, but getting to know other, let's say, health systems or education systems. And for me, that was, I think, really the added value of these exchanges. So definitely a lot of practices that can be brought back home, and for very different countries as well. I did my Scory exchange in Peru, my Scopy exchange in Australia. As you can imagine, those are two very different cultures, very different working cultures, and also quite different to our own. So I definitely found that very useful, and a few kind of practices from there to take back home.
Ella, did any exchange?
I only spent a month in a hospital in the US, but it wasn't organized by IFMSA. But it was definitely a interesting cultural experience.
Cool.
I don't have really special things to add.
Jessica. Jessica is muted.
Yeah,
how about
Jessica.
Hi. I've never been on an IFMSA exchange. I've been a contact person, which was really, really fun. But I've done a bit with Erasmus Plus abroad. So I suppose culturally it might be kind of similar. But it's a very interesting experience. I really liked it. So I hope to go on exchanges in the future.
How about Harish?
Well, actually, I've never been in an exchange, but I was a contact person like Jessica, and last year in my term as NOMI, I worked closely with both the NEOs and NORI in training to increase academic quality in exchanges and pre-summer season trainings for our active members, actually. And yeah.
And how about Tommaso?
I actually never been to a Scopy exchange, but I've been to a Scory one.
Shame.
Maru, I know that. I know Maru is so happy now. I've been to Iran before, like there was suspended. But yeah, and it was the experience of life. I actually learned lots of additional knowledge of in the field of basic research and clinical research. So it was great.
Okay, thank you, guys. So if you could pass to the next slide, Rodrigo.
Okay, but just wait for it. It's actually missing myself. I also did 2 exchanges before. I went one for France, one for Poland, and currently I'm on South Africa, where I'm attending one of my exchanges also. So guys, well, as you can see, we here during our webinar, we have plenty of experience actually for every region. So feel free to ask any question you might have. You can continue, Mauro.
Thank you, Rodrigo. So now we're talking about the expectations for this workshop. First, of course, as we're doing this introduction to the webinar. Later, we're going to discuss about IFMSA exchanges and the capacity building related to the exchanges. About the pre-departure preparations, we're also how you can prepare your exchange students for going on exchange, how you can prepare that. Later on, we're going to discuss about personal health for both for the outgoing student and incoming student. Then about travel safety and how to deal with visa issues. Then we're discussing cultural competency. That's basically what I discussed on when I was sharing my experience about the difference of cultures and how you can deal with it. And then we're going to discuss also how to fill the student handbook and the logbook. That's a very important part on the academic quality for the exchange. Finally, we're going to discuss global health within the exchanges. What's the purpose that we perform our exchanges and why is it so related to global health? And finally we're doing an exchanges checklist.
All right.
Next one, please. Yep. Anyone want to add something, Rodrigo?
No, you can continue. Andre,
okay, so yeah.
Continue. And you know, this is kind of a pre-departure training, and before we get into the specifics of whatever, you know, the listeners or the watchers of this webinar are going to find out, it's kind of offering the bigger picture of how exchanges fit into capacity building and vice versa as well. And to do that, we need to ask ourselves, you know, what is capacity building in its most primal essence, or in its most, you know, essential core. And basically that's a process where, you know, it could be an organization or it could be a person who develops competencies, gains skills, gains knowledge, and so on. And, you know, you might be thinking before you take up an exchange, you know, why am I doing this? What's in it for me? And, you know, when you put the fun aside, because, come on, let's be honest, a lot of people also, the fun is the big factor, but as we know, IFMSA is not a travel agency. So people go to exchanges in order to gain something. And that can do a lot with gaining knowledge or skills, or, you know, new cultural perspectives like Mauro mentioned before. Basically what we want is, when we get out of it, when we get out of the exchange, we want to be a more wholesome person, a person with more experience, with more knowledge, and in the end, a more competent person. So this, in that sense, we can view the exchange itself as a capacity building intervention or a capacity building event. And in that sense, also, the exchanges represent a very, very big part of IFMSA's capacity building. Now, getting more into the specifics of what we usually call capacity building, which is often related to training, but not solely, we can see that Scopy and SCORY have actually influenced capacity building in IFMSA quite a lot. A lot of you might be familiar with the so-called SRTs, so the sub-regional training, but maybe not many of you know that that actually started as a platform for Scopy and SCORY to share experiences, to train people, to get ready, you know, to improve the exchanges program. And then over the years, you know, they started adding TNTs and other workshops. And today, basically, what's become of it is just another IFMSA event where people go to develop different skills and gain knowledge in the workshops. In addition to that, also, the TNET was one of the first extra training workshops. So the first one obviously was the TNT, training new trainers, but then the TNET I think followed quite closely after that. And I think it was the first standing committee that developed that sort of a workshop. So this was how basically Scopy and SCORY influenced capacity building in IFMSA, but also capacity building is kind of it's a two-way street. So what is specific capacity building with it, Scopy and SCORY? Of course, we have the pre-departure training, which is something that we're doing right now. We have other workshops such as TNET, so training new exchange trainers, or PRET. But more importantly, we can see that there are new new ways of capacity building that are also seeping into the exchanges, which I think this webinar is a very good representation of that. So new methods, trying to be in, we're trying to involve new methods into our standing committees, and I think this webinar serves as a great example. So at this point, I would basically stop talking about the basics of it, or the outline, and let's just get into the specifics.
All right, thank you, Andre. Are you done? Do you want to add anything else?
I'm done, thank you.
All right, so just like pushing the gap with what Andre was mentioning, it's basically the collaboration within standing committees, and that you also need to ask the standing committees officers to help you while conducting trainings in specific areas within the pre-departure training. In this case, SCORA, for instance, you can ask for personal health, taking sexual anamnesis, SCORE like ethical considerations, intercultural learning. For SCOF, we can talk about global health knowledge and social determinants of health, and SCOMI, medical workshops and linguistic competency. There are other topics that you can tackle, so then you just need to talk with your other local exchange, local officers in order to collaborate. So still in the pre-departure preparations, we want to talk the whole picture of the pre-departure training. So we're going to start first talking about the must-read documents before you go to an exchange, then the personal health, global health, travel safety and visas, cultural competencies, medical education abroad, and how to fill the student handbook or logbook. Tommy, do you want to start with the most must-read documents before your exchange?
Okay, so can you please go to the next slide, boss? Okay, thank you very much. Basically, there are different kinds of documents that you have to consider and fill in or read and respect, or rules you have to abide by before your exchange and during your exchange. One of the most important documents is the exchange conditions. You find them online on our website, which is ifmsa.org. And the exchange conditions actually contain all the specific requirements of the host organization. So it's very important that you read them and you respect them, because this will be actually the rules of your exchange. And your exchange is actually at risk if you. Next slide.
This is basically an example.
This is where exactly. This is where you find them on ifmsa.org. If you go on Exchange World, and you can see the participating countries and exchange conditions link, and then you can find both the Scopy exchange conditions and the SCORY exchange conditions. Another important, there are always web pages. In this case, they are the Explorer pages, and they are actually basically a description of the host organizations. So they basically give you an insight into the health system of the host country, the exchange program, also must-see, so things you can see in the country, important monuments. So from the things mostly connected, more connected to the exchange, to things more connected to social program, and many more. It's actually different from exchange conditions. It does not contain the rules of the exchange in this case. So it's just a presentation of the host country and of the host local committee. Because actually, next slide. Because actually there are both NMO Explore page, where you can see general information about the country, and also the LC Explore page, where you can see specific conditions for the local committee and exchange program offered by the hosting local committee. Next slide. Okay. Basically, these are evaluation form statistics, which is something that you can find in your account. Especially if you are an exchange officer, is very useful to analyze evaluation form statistics. Basically, what these are an example from the pre-departure training, and we're actually showing that most of the people unfortunately did not participate in the pre-departure training, but among those who took part in the pre-departure training, most of them actually agreed on the statement that the pre-departure training was useful. So it's actually a very important thing to be prepared for the exchange, and this is one of the reasons of this webinar as well. So we hope you will care of the proper preparation before going on the exchange, which is surely a funny experience, but also a very challenging experience sometimes. Next slide. Exchange reports. These are quite new because they were introduced during the last year, but they are very useful documents as well. Basically, we have collected over the past around the past year different reports from different exchange students who went on exchange and actually wrote a summary of their experience. And this could be important if you want to understand more of the country you're going to. And basically they are available online as well on the database platform of our website, ifmsa.org. There is a specific section where you can actually go to all the reports. You can filter them, and both for Skopje and for Skori, there are two different sections. This is it about the exchange reports. Can you please go to the next slide? This is an example. So this is an example from a student from Canada who went to Vienna, in the summer of 2015. And you can basically find plenty of reports like this in the website. And it is very important as well to stay in touch with Skopje and Skori world with a Facebook group. You can join the Facebook groups through the link that you are seeing projected onto the screen. This is basically a way to stay in touch with all the people working for Skopje and Skori, to share experience, but also to check for informations. And they are also very important tools. Next. This is students folder. You can find the link on the screen, and this is basically a folder that Skopje IT and also Skori has prepared for you to make all documents that are actually needed by students in a single folder. So you can basically find all the things you need, animal special documents. For example, sometimes some animals require for special documents to accept students in their country. So it might be useful to, this is actually the place where you can find them. Rather than asking the Neos or Leos or Noris or Loris, where can I find this document? Can you please send it to me? And then database manual for students, if you need help in understanding how to do any kind of procedure in the database, there's a database manual. Skopje terms and conditions, Skopje student handbook, and also, of course, from the Skori side, there is the Skori logbook. These are very, very important tools for academic quality. You're supposed to bring them with you on exchange and ask the tutor to sign them. And it's a sort of diary of your exchange where you can the activities you do each day. And then the pre-exchange booklet, the outgoing manual, which is a kind of big manual that will guide you through the whole way through your exchange. Next.
Basically here, Tommy, I can take care from here. We're going to talk more about the student handbook. There is one tool that it's sometimes not well utilized. use it worldwide. So basically, you can have this example here of the content of each of the general student handbook. We have the introduction to the FMSA scope program in the first part, and then we have the letter to student, letters to professors, and also the other topics that we're going to talk during this webinar. Mainly, it is important for you to know because sometimes people struggle a lot when they are trying to fill this student handbook. So that's why we're wrapping up everything to make everything clear. In the letter of the student, it's pretty much everything explained. So let's read it like very carefully with you guys. Okay. So the first like very important thing for you to increase your chance of getting credits and recognition for your exchanges is arrange to meet the professor from your home institution before you go into an exchange. This is quite important for you to set the goals, what do you want to achieve, and what is important for you. Like, for example, when you arrive there, you're going to pediatrics. And when you arrive, they offer like a really broad things of opportunities for you to see: endocrinology, neurology, cardiology, and so on. But what is actually your goal? What do you actually want to improve? So it's very important for you to have this in your mind. Also, there is in this student handbook a place where you can add your own personal objectives, and that will help you to self-evaluate throughout the whole exchange. So you can also measure and see either you're progressing or not during your exchange, okay? Arrange to meet your supervising doctor on day one, which is very important. So then you can also meet your expectations. You can also see what is feasible or not. Self-evaluate yourself and fill out the student handbook. Ensure that you meet all the expectations in order to get your certificate. This not implies that you cannot get your certificate if you don't meet your expectations, but it's really important for you to be happy with your expectation in order to get your certificate. Then fill out the electronic evaluation form. That is like one of the requirements for you to get your certificate, actually. And then at the end of your exchange, and when you come back, you can present to your Leo the signed handbook, the certificate, and the report of your internship for your local exchange officer. All right? Mainly that's it for the student handbook. Mauro, would you like to add anything for the Scory logbook?
Yes, sure. Thank you. So they're very similar. What are the purposes for it? The only difference in the Scory handbook is that in the Scory logbook, oh my God, you have been saying handbook for such a long time, I forgot it. For the Scory logbook is that we actually divide the activities in 4 days, in weeks. So we have 4 rooms for activities where you write down all your activities from that week. It's not like a daily one. And it's very important to follow the same steps as Rodrigo mentioned, talking to your home institution to see what they can, what they would want you to learn, and also in the first day talking to your hosting institution so you could organize your expectations about what you want to learn and what are the outcomes you want from the end of what are the outcomes you want for the end of that exchange. Thank you, Rodrigo.
All right, great. But it's very important to understand that the academic quality has both ways. It doesn't come only from you, but also the professor is really important. So still in the handbook, we have both letters for the professor on your home institution and also to the supervising tutor. They are mainly to explain to them what is IFMSA and what is their role within your learning outcomes. Okay, it's very important to remember that sometimes the tutors they are not quite aware of the student handbook. So an active look for your tutors and, hey tutor, come here, help me, let's evaluate my progress together so we can help us to achieve our goals. This is really important. So be active, and look for the professors when you're trying to when you're in the way to check your handbook. This is this in the same way for the score logbook, right, Mauro? Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then we continue with personal health. Ella.
Hello. Okay, so about personal health, because I'm the SCUF director, apparently I'm an authority on health. So I'm going to talk you through these slides. But it really is common sense, so you really don't need to be a genius to get it. Can you go to the next slide, please? So just when you're leaving for your exchange, you want to keep in mind that the health system and the context abroad is not the same one as where you live, of course. So you want to just make sure you check about, common sense things like, can I drink the water out of the faucet? What kind of food is safe? How do you prevent injuries? Are there any vector-borne illnesses that you want to keep an eye out of that you're not used to? Any means of prevention that you might not be used to as well, and then exposure to HIV. Next slide, please. Yeah, you want to keep in mind your physical health. So also just consider bringing a first aid kit with general meds that might help you, but you don't have to because you will find a pharmacy wherever you're going to. But also don't forget your mental health because you're going to be in a new place. Factors such as culture shock, which I think will be talked about later on, or feeling alone in a new environment, the different conditions in the place you're working in. So just to keep in mind that probably you're going to need a little bit more energy in general for whatever you're doing because the context is very new. Next slide, please. Yeah, you want to also check if you need any vaccinations, at least a couple of months before you depart, because if you need to do 2 or 3, then you need the time to do them. And also to make sure that you bring your documents with you, especially for the yellow fever, because you might not be able to access a country if you don't show documents for your immunization. Next slide. Yeah, and then the last point on personal health is just insurance. You have to have health insurance to participate in an exchange program, so you have to make sure that you have that. And then, of course, you might want to consider travel insurance, which can cover different things, such as, I don't know, your luggage getting lost or having to cancel a flight, these kinds of things. And then consider personal liability insurance. Is something breaks or accident. And then your professional liability, which is, in the case of medicine, it's usually a very good idea to have. Yeah, next. So just a couple of words on global health, because we talk a lot about global health and exchanges, and what is this business of global health and exchanges. So I just want to talk you through one of the real basics, but it's important for you to have this in order for you to gain a better perspective of what you're discovering abroad, but also in your own country. So I'm just going to walk you through the differences between public, international, global, and planetary health. So next slide, please. I'm going to quiz the speakers here and ask you if you know what country this is.
I know.
What country this is.
I know.
What country is it?
Albania.
Portugal.
Correct. It's Albania.
Oh,
No,
sorry.
it's not Portugal, Rodrigo, but I appreciate the effort. Yeah, that's Albania.
Rodrigo.
Corey first.
So let's just say we want to talk about public health. What is public health, and what's the difference between global and public health? And there is an issue inside a country or a region of that country, and that country is trying to deal with it. So important talking about public health is understanding the difference between public health and clinical medicine. Because clinical medicine is what you do in a primary healthcare setting or a clinic, a hospital. It's focused on the individual, whereas public health is focused on the masses and on the population. So understanding the difference between these two things is very important. Most likely you're going to be working in a hospital, so you're going to be confronted with clinical medicine. But then in the objectives of your exchange, you're asked to gain a perspective of the epidemiology of the country you're in. And this has to do with public health. you want to really try and understand the difference between these two. Next slide. So now the question is, what is the other country that we can see on the slide?
Chile.
Good job, Rodrigo. Okay, so that's Chile. So I put two countries here because this is important to understand international health. So a lot of people think that international health is a two-way collaboration between countries working on, but what international health actually is one country going to another country and somehow intervening on some public health issue that they have in that country. And international health is the one that has a sort of historical value because once upon a time it used to be more along the lines of high-income countries going towards low-income countries and organizing development projects and this kind of thing. So that's what international health is, which you most likely will not be doing in your exchange. And then the next slide. So which country is this one?
Mars. The planet Earth.
Correct. Okay. So now we're talking about global health, and global health is when you have a issue that is spread worldwide. So I'm going to interrogate the speakers again. Could you give me any example of a global health issue?
Tobacco.
NCDs.
Good. NCDs such as?
Diabetes.
Diabetes, okay, that's a global health issue. Anything else?
Climate change.
Change. Okay. Yeah. All right. So anything that has to do with the global perspective can be a global health issue. And then the last slide of this series about planetary health. Planetary health is just going one step further than global health, and it recognizes that our health also depends on more things than just humans. So it has to do with the environment that we're in, the animals and the plants and everything that's connected. And so planetary health is sort of the, let's say, most holistic vision that you can have of our global health and health. So this is a perspective that we're trying to gain more and more in the practice that we have today. Okay, next slide. Okay, so let's talk about global health and exchanges, coming back to the initial point. It's, of course, you want to discover what the local reality is. But the global health is about a global reality as well. So just to keep in mind that when you're on your exchange, you will be confronted both with a public health setting, a public health reality, but then you can also have global health issues and a global health kind of perspective in whatever you're doing. And I think it's very interesting if you go on an exchange to try and the differences and the division between these two. Next slide. Yeah, okay, so as goals for your exchange, you have discovering the local epidemiology, as we said it before, what the primary health concerns are, and then see what public health issues you can identify and what global health issues you can identify. Okay, next. Slide, next slide, please. Thank you. So if we're just talking about public health, structure of the country's healthcare system and how it's funded, this can be more or less complicated depending how detailed you want to get. You want to gain knowledge about the medical education system in the host country as well. And you want to see if there are any public health differences between regions of the same country. So you might have a country with very, very diverse public health realities, such as countries that have vast areas of rural settings, and then or that have big cities as well. So it's also interesting to sort of see what the differences are. And next slide. So yeah, so I just talked about the difference between public health, clinical medicine, and then public, global, international, planetary health. But there are a lot of other really interesting public health basics that can help you gain a lot of perspective on the place that you're having your exchange in, such as what the different fundamental models of healthcare systems are. You want to learn the different levels of prevention, because that can also help you easily identify what kind of actions are being performed in the country, if the country is strongly oriented towards a lot of primary prevention or not. Then you also want to see what the relationship is between the primary, secondary, and tertiary healthcare systems and the accessibility of them. If primary healthcare facilities do they have? How widespread are they in the country? And then just learning about the access to healthcare. So what is the access to health condition in a rural area or in a city? What are the different laws in the country? For example, is it against the law to have an abortion or not? And this kind of thing. So that's just for you if you want to go a little bit from me of public health theory. Maybe just one thing I wanted to add is that I'm really proud that this year we've been trying to develop exchanges also in the Standing Committee of Public Health. And we're trying to organize exchanges that are mainly public health oriented, for example, in public health departments or NGOs. So just to look out for those in the next few months. That's it.
All right. Thank you very much, Ella. And
You're very
just
welcome.
just to emphasize, like, this initiative that they've been working in SCOF just already for a while, but that this time we're joining forces with the professional exchanges to try to implement it as like a department and to really take this initiative on the professional exchanges on public health. Moving forward, still in the global health, Arish.
So, hello everyone. We're going to tackle global health from another perspective now, which is education. And as many of you know, that the majority of curricula around the world are focusing on community health rather than global health. And community health is actually when it tackles the diseases and issues that are endemic to your home countries. Therefore, if you aspire to acquire the knowledge and skills that will open your eyes to global health, you need to find your own starting point, which is in this case IFMSA exchanges. An exchange developed competencies in future practitioners that would not otherwise have been developed by a standard old medical curriculum. For example, language skills, adaptability, communication skills, and cultural competency skills, which are developed in exchanges and empower medical students to become good communicators and collaborators as practitioners. In addition, when you go on exchanges, for example, in some tropical countries, in some countries, let's say in the EMR in Africa, you will be exposed to diseases that might not be endemic to your home country. And this will give you a chance to learn more and do more research and nurture your scholar spirit. We would like for you to be able to be better at managing patients from different cultures professionally at the end of your exchange and have a better idea of the social cultural determinants of health. And that will pave the way for you to develop leadership and advocacy skills in healthcare. So, as you might have noticed, an exchange contributes widely in making you the best medical expert as it fits perfectly within the CanMed's framework. IFMSA so allows you to become a professional, communicator, a collaborator, a leader, a health advocate, a scholar, and especially a medical expert. Also, as Rodrigo and Mauro have been saying, please refer to the exchange's handbook for the competencies IFMSA wishes to evaluate at the end of your exchange. And I think that was it for me.
Thank you, Arish. Thank you for reminding about the handbook and the logbook, because everything we do, it's with the purpose, is not a trip, and we want to have as many outcomes as possible from the exchanges. So remember of using the logbook so we can improve the medical education linked to our exchanges. Thank you so much.
And now Carlos will talk about travel safety and business.
Okay, guys. So hi. I don't know if everybody can see me. I'm Carlos, and I'm currently Square Director. And unfortunately, I'm not going to tell you how to have safe sex during your exchanges, but I'm going to talk about visas. Since I'm Colombian, so we have some experiences with visa applications and also visa rejections. So this is a little bit kind of like of the main points that we need to consider into like while applying. So there are three things that you need to have in mind when having like to apply for a visa. The first one is the timing. It is super important that you have kind of like a proper timing before your exchange in order to apply for a visa. So okay, there's some warnings that I need to give. The first one is that there's actually no guarantee that you will get a visa, but there's some things, let's say, that at least you can know in order to know like what are the possibilities that you can to get it. The first one is the political stability that your country has with the country you're traveling to, and that is very important. Like, for example, we have direct conflicts that enter into the mapping that are, for example, Venezuela and Colombia, Bangladesh and India, Pakistan and India as well, or these kind of like, or well, now the United States with the ban to 8 countries. So, I mean, these political situations you need to really take into consideration in order to apply. And they're not as easy as like you might think of. So this is the first thing. The second thing is that many people don't know that they need a transit visa in order to go to their country. So a transit visa is the permit that you need in order to fly over or have a layover like in that country. In order for you to get like an overview of what visa expenses you have, so what visa requirements you have, I have like kind of like some tips and tricks I can share with you. So I'm going to share my screen for that. Let me see. Okay, so I always get into these 2 sites. The first one is IATA. Okay, so IATA is like kind of like the international airline kind of like distributor. They have a really nice publication. If you go here to publications, you can find standards, manuals, and guidelines in which you can find kind of like information about what visas do you have as a requirement. Or also kind of like your Wikipedia page like of your country also shows some information. Of course, it's best if you always compare like the information you have with the IATA and your Wikipedia page with the official documents and guidelines from the country. So you can also just search in Google kind of like where the embassy, like the page of the embassy, and what are the main documents that you need there. And also for the transit visas, I always come here to the Qatar Airlines. This is like a formulary that you just fill in, you know, with your nationality, where your residency is, the embarkation or where you're coming from, and your destinations. And when you get the results, then you will get like if you need a transit visa or not, which is also comes in handy into knowing kind of like these other requirements. So these are the first things that you need to know, kind of like what are the things that I need to follow. It's also very important that many times the applications of visa comes along with other official documents. So for example, yellow fever vaccination for everyone going to Tanzania. I don't want anyone to get rejected in the border because they do not have a yellow fever vaccination card. It is very important. As well as other like types of documents such as invitation letters, and or let's say bank receipts that are also important, and travel insurance, as Ella said. Those are the generally kind of like the documents that people tell you to bring, or that you get asked for when you pass immigration society. So protecting key documents. So key documents that you need to have. Document number 1, of course, is a valid passport. I know that this sounds kind of like super basic, but yeah, you need electronic or mechanic reading passport. These are passports that have been issued from 2011 till now. So it is very important for you to know what type of passport do you have. And if you have like a very old passport, you need to check on that because nowadays you won't get it like anywhere, not even outside of your country, to be honest. Okay, so first that. Second is the confirmation letter or the letter of invitation that you need to get. So IFMSA provides an official invitation letter right there in the database. So you can get this official letter. You need to invitation letter and also your card of acceptance. Like both of them are more or less for the same issuance. But since the invitation letter generated by the database has also kind of like the signatures of the Leo, that's why it might seem sometimes a little bit more official. If this invitation letter is not good for you, there is always the possibility that you send an email to the Leos, like you're hosting Leos in the country where you're traveling to send you also like a different copy with other requirements that can also be mediated, and I have done that as a Leo in the past. The thing is that as official as possible that you get the documents, they will be much more reliable, and therefore they will have you kind of like in the better look for the visa application. Okay. Again, your bank receipts are also very important. Knowing how are you financing your traveling expenses is very important, like for visa applications, mainly if you're going to the US, Europe, or Canada. They are very picky on that. And also, well, the last document is everything that certifies that you are also a student. That has been kind of like, in many countries, that is something good. Fortunately, I guess for these procedures, generally medical students are in a good note, like kind of like in a social perception of a good note. Therefore, that may be something you might consider as well. So emergency preparedness is something also to take into consideration. Knowing that it is very important that you have kind of like a plan B in case your first application doesn't apply, or I mean it doesn't work. So therefore, before that, you need to know like what types of documents do you have and what types of documents could you improve. So when I talk about improving documents, it is make them the most officially possible. Generally, like the invitation letters, as you can see, are electronic, so probably shifting that into an official letter stamped and signed by a official national stamping, or I don't know, credential systems can also be important. For example, here in Spain, they have the national police that issues kind of like an official letter that you're going. That is also very important. So you can, this point is more for you to know that you cannot reapply, and that is something that is allowed in every single embassy of the world. It is also important to know, if you're a student like me, that right now I have a tourist status in Europe while my exchange. You cannot, probably there are some countries where you cannot apply as a tourist, and that is also important. If you're living in a country abroad from your own and you want to apply for another visa, you need to check the specific requirements for a tourist in the country, because there are some countries that do not let you apply for a visa whatsoever if you're a tourist or if you're not in the country where your passport is being issued. So that is very important. I just got rejected for that. Okay, so okay, actually the prescriptions here depend on the type of visa you're applying. If it is generally a tourist visa, you won't be asked for prescriptions. But you will be asked mainly if you're going like for medical treatment or something like that, or if you have a specific disease that, but this is more kind of like for airport use, if you have a disease that will not let you pass through the control systems that regularly are allowed in the airport, but not necessarily for the application, I think.
Or for example, actually, if you
I don't know if there's
use some control medication.
They control your medication?
Yeah, if for example, if you use any kind of control medication and you're traveling abroad, you need to have a proof of the reason you do it. Like for example, Paula, that is our NEO, she has diabetes, and every time she's traveling with a lot of needles and syringes and insulin, so sometimes she has to explain it. So she always travel with her prescription for it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't know about that. Thank you, Mauro. Okay, can you pass the next slide? No, wait, back. Okay. So, okay, can you, the other one? Yes, thank you. Okay. Transportation and flights, this is a hack that I always do that always works, but it is very important. I don't know if you have seen, but in many visa applications, they ask you to annex your ticket, your electronic ticket of the flight. And then you kind of like get this debate of, but I still don't have my visa. I don't know if I should buy my, the tickets already. And well, this is a hack that you can do. There's some airlines such as Turkish Airlines, Qatar Airways, and also Iberia that I have bought before. I don't know other airlines, but check on that. They let you not book a ticket, but kind of like do a reservation without buying your ticket, and that reservation will be valid for at least some 3 to 4 days. So you can use this reservation in your visa application, and that will count as if you are having your ticket, your ticket bought. This is also important, because of course there are sometimes that you get visa rejected, and therefore you really don't know if you're getting accepted or not, and therefore you will definitely save a lot of money with that. So that is also that is also pretty much important. Entry and exit requirements are also okay, so this is the part where there's some incongruent information, but I would recommend that for entering any country, you need to get the essential documents that I mentioned, your medical information, as Mauro said, or your yellow vaccination fever, your passport, correctly informed documents, and your bank or insurance accounts are very important to enter any country. But there are some countries that are mostly picky with this, mainly if there are countries that do not require you a visa. Why is this? Because when countries ask you to apply for a visa, they grab a lot of information from you, which means that generally in the entry or upon arrival, they won't ask you that many questions in their interview. Okay, but if you're traveling to a country where you do not require a visa, or in the case of European Union, you're exiting the European Union and going to another country, they might, even if you don't have a visa, they might ask you some questions regarding at least 2. Where are you traveling to, or why are you coming to the country, and for how long are you staying? These are the 2 basic questions that any country will ask you. Now, if there's something else outside of that, you need to have something to prove that you're traveling for these reasons. So that's why it's important to carry with yourself always a printed copy of your confirmation letter with the hospital as official as possible, as well as, for example, traveling in Africa, your vaccination requirements and these kinds of things. Upon arrival, it's just being informed of what are the transportation means and if it is safe. There is also, Ella also mentioned insurance, because there's also some insurance programs that cover you initial transportation in case you lose your catch-up train or things like that. There are some companies that do those types of deals, but then you also need to know what does your insurance cover in what situations. That's also very important. And I think that these are most of my basic, let's say tips into visa applications and things like that. Check always also the period of your visa that your visa takes to be issued. That is also important, because generally they're in working days and they take national holidays of the country off, so those do not count as the working days for your visa issuance. And yeah, more or less, don't wait. At least apply for your visa at least with 1 month before the date of your travels. That's it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Carlos. Now we proceed with cultural competency with Jessica. Jessica, you there?
Okay.
Yes.
Hello, everyone again. So, obviously, when you travel abroad, you will most likely meet a new culture. And maybe that is also one of the reasons for why you want to do an exchange, because it can be quite interesting. And actually, what is a culture, right? You might notice things such as clothes, music, art, but culture is also a lot more, and many of the things are more subtle. Next. Oh, I Nice. Yeah, and it's quite common to culture as an iceberg. You only see the tip of the iceberg, or those are the things you see, and it's a very small part of everything else. Like some more invisible things would be, for example, how people greet each other, or body language, distance, personal space, which you can learn also quite quickly, and you will notice that something is different. Of those things that kind of you really need to discuss in order to understand, always do, because you're often not aware of them yourself. So it's more the values, the assumptions, the priorities of what is important in life, or it can be religion or spirituality, how you deal with conflicts, different norms, gender norms, and it can cause clashes because you don't understand each other, and it can cause frustration because you don't understand why people act the way they act, because it's not logical to you. And although we often see ourselves as open-minded and free from, really very difficult to buy these things, because
Jessica, you're muted.
sorry, have I been muted all the time?
You're back.
Oh, muted?
Next slide.
How much
Jessica,
did you hear? Because I don't know when I can.
You haven't been muted all the time, so you can just start from the last place.
Should I start from the beginning?
No. Just from the last thing you were saying, because you haven't been muted all the time, so that's fine.
Oh, okay. So I was just sorry. Okay. So what was I saying? Right. So just understand that people have different backgrounds and histories, and it's not better or worse, because we often tend to see our ways of acting as the normal, and everyone else is kind of weird. Because they are different, and especially maybe if you come from a country which likes to see itself as modern and progressive, such as the country I come from, which is Sweden. It's kind of easy to want everyone else to act your way, but just to be mindful of that. But I think overall, we also benefit a lot from the different cultures, and we have this culture exchange where we learn from each other, and you will probably have like national foods and drinks parties, and you will get to know each other's cultures, and it's really a lot of fun. But then on the other side of it, we have a concept called cultural appropriation. I don't know if you've heard of it before. It does to use someone else's culture in an inappropriate way. One example would be for like making fun of someone else's cultural expressions. So using someone else's cultural items, for example, for a Halloween costume would be maybe not very appropriate. So I would maybe not recommend you of doing that, because like also cultural objects might have meaning and importance that we don't understand. So unless you are really, really into culture, just be very to do with it and how you use it. Careful with the culture of, or be mindful when it comes to the culture of minorities and of oppressed groups, because oftentimes these people might not be able to like express their culture in a way in society so that they're accepted, change their own culture in order to be discriminated and be able to get the equal job opportunities and so on. And in these cases, it might not be true to like use other people's culture, especially if you belong to face the same discrimination, because it kind of perpetuates and have power inequalities in such a sense. But it's kind of complicated, but it has a lot of roots, history, and people and groups.
Should I pass this slide?
Just the essence of it is being of another culture. So like use it respectfully or respectfully. Next. And of course, culture also health and our view of health and patients. So some things it could affect is are amongst this the perception of illness, why you become sick, if it's some kind of punishment or if it's like I don't know, something that we kind of have to. It's a pedagogical matter as well how we deal with it, but also how they view medication or different types of therapy, how they express their problems, complaints, and how conditions are viewed in themselves. They see you as a healthcare worker and what relationship they have with you. And here, once again, it's important to like understand and respect their different ways. Sometimes they can, like some things might be maybe against principles. For example, let's say adherence to therapy or choice of medication, and we might think that it's not logical at all and want to do, but then we have to put it into the cultural context and historical context, and something that would work really well, like something that would be our countries might not be the best option in another context. So just really be mindful of the fact that we don't understand all of these things. Next. Thank you. And obviously it's important for us to understand where our patients are coming from and how they're reasoning so that we can best treat them and have better compliance and concordance, better like health outcomes. And also just to add from my SCARP point of view, I do believe that intercultural understanding is an important like building block to peace and peaceful development. So it's really a lot of things you can learn, which settings. Next. And somewhat related, we also have medical ethics. And of course, medical ethics is the same regardless of where you are. And the way to remember ethical principles is the A, B, C, D, E, F. Go through them all. A stands for autonomy, so that the patient is the one who decides what they want to do. Of course, there are acceptable, but in general, what we have are the patient is the one who decides what they want to do or not want to do. Beneficence is quite straightforward. We want to do things that benefit our patients, that them. But then again, they can come in conflict because sometimes the thing that would actually help them is not the thing they want. But nevertheless. And then we have C for confidentiality, which means that you shouldn't information about your patient to other people who are not involved in the treatment of the patient, includes family, for example, which also, once again, this might be very different in different cultures. So then you just have to figure out the way to act most appropriately in the context, also taking into consideration confidentiality. But I really want to emphasize that medical ethics is important. And also something that might affect this is domestic laws of the country, because sometimes, for example, in some countries, you need to report STI, sexually transmitted infections, and then you need to do that according to the law. So it's also good to keep in mind and to know what the national legislation looks like in the country you are doing your work. And then we have D for do no harm, also known as non-maleficence, which means that you should simply avoid doing harm to your patients, which is quite straightforward. But for example, okay, the difficulty is that it also includes medications. which we can often not avoid because a lot of medications come with side effects, for example. So then here again, it's important to understand what the patient values and whether the patient sees the side effect as something acceptable or not, even if we feel that, okay, this side effect is not so important, it might be important for them to be mindful of that. And something else that is often included in do no harm, if you look at, for example, volunteering or humanitarian work, which is, I know, not really the same as exchanges, but to me be similar, is to look at the sustainability of your work and how it impacts the local community also in the long term, and the society and the people around you, and which is a bit more than within medicine. Okay, then we have equity, and it's about treating people according to their needs. Before, we used to talk more about equality. Equality is kind of giving people the same, everyone gets the same, that's equality, whereas equity is differently depending on their need in order for them to kind of reach the same outcome. So the more you need, the more you get, or the less you have, the more you get, depending on the situation. And that's also the idea of how we should prioritize, for example, resources for the patients, or who should get medical attention and so on. F stands for fairness, which is somehow related to equity as well, but it's more about the procedures so that biased and it's not corrupt and so on. Very, very briefly, the principles of medical ethics. Once again, this is the same. Just keep in mind the domestic legislation. Okay, so maybe next. So some more ethical considerations, and this is every go, obviously. So it should be the same in all countries. Sometimes it's easy to forget when we travel somewhere else, like we forget the responsibilities or in our important. If you go to maybe less developed than your own, because I believe that's when tend to these errors. So first of all, don't do things that you wouldn't be able to do in your home country. Ensure that you have proper supervision for everything you do, because obviously you are there to learn. The patient is still a human who has the same rights and worth as any patient in your home country, and they are worse. And also to realizations, and also the limitations in the context of the local community, which is the first one, as well, like what you can do and what you cannot do. To realize that sometimes the local community or the hospital might set for to be there and in order to integrate you and to towards their effort. Lastly, it says your patients and members of the host country are not. And first, we go on an exchange. You want to things that, but not everyone wants to be a part of these pictures, and also how they are portrayed in this. So make sure that people always concept taken of them, especially if they are to be used in social media similar, and that it depicts them in a dignified way. Like, be humble and strict and without. And the exchange will also teach you a lot, at least in how you deal with different people, which will make you a better doctor for the future.
Thank you,
Alright,
Jessica.
You can continue, Mauro.
Nope, I'm good. I'm just thanking Jessica.
Thank you very much, Jessica. So Mauro, now we go to the last part, that is like the pre-departure exchanges checklist. Maybe you can discuss with me whether you agree or not. What do you think?
Okay, let's discuss it.
All right, so basically this is the things that they're supposed to do like before their exchange, okay? So an outgoing, before they leave, they should mark all these things that we're gonna talk now. Okay, so the outgoing should read the FMSA pre-departure booklet, which means like the outgoing manual. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree. And it's also called Outgoing Manual. It was created by Square.
Yes.
Thank you.
So you participated in a pre-departure training organized by your students' organization for all the things that were mentioned already in the webinar. It's very important for you to apply. Also, there is the visa application if necessary for you to always take in mind, either you need visa or not. Also, what Carlos mentioned during his transmission regarding the transit visa. So please take in mind everything before you go to an exchange. You are equipped with the student handbook or logbook specific for your department and research. It is important to remember that in Scopy, we have 7 different student handbooks for each one of the specialities. So you need to be equipped with that. You need to arrange a meeting with your professor from your home institution before your departure to discuss about expectations and goals of your clerkship and add any additional objectives in the appropriate section of the student handbook / logbook. After you receive your card of acceptance, and only after receiving your card of acceptance, you booked all your transportation tickets, either by train or by bus, by boat, by bicycle, by camel. I don't know from which region you are, but yeah, only buy your transportation ticket after receiving your card of acceptance. Also, you sent your card of confirmation before 4 weeks in advance to the beginning of your exchange in order for your contact person to actually know that you're applying, that you're actually going. What do you think, Mauro? Did you like it?
Yeah, just remembering something. In the pre-departure training organized for the students, you can also have it online, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Rodrigo, the sound is, can you turn off your sound, your microphone, because it's coming back?
Okay.
Okay, so
It's still, now we change it like for during. In during is you acknowledge that the cultural shock impact exists. You met with your contact person and clarified all the questions you have. You paid if you're in unilateral exchange. Arrange to meet your supervising doctor on the very first day of the exchange to discuss all the expectations. And don't forget also to be really nice and introduce yourself to your mentor and your colleagues. You need to check each one of these topics. Still, you added on your own personal objectives in the appropriate section of this handbook and self-evaluate them throughout the exchange, handbook or logbook. Also to observe professional and doctor-patient relationship in the host country to compare them to the home country. You attended more than 80% of your internship in order to get your certificate. You filled out the electronic evaluation form available at the FMSA database, fmsa.org, at the end of your exchange in order to get your certificate, and you've successfully completed your exchange and received your certificate. After, there is you presented the signed handbook, certificate, and the report of your internship to your local exchange officer when you return from your exchange. You share your experience with other outgoings to the same country, helping them with testimonials and exchanges report. This will save a lot of time for them after when they go. To know about the primary health concerns and basic epidemiology of the host country and how it differs from your home country. You understand the structure of the healthcare system in the host country and how it is funded. You have a knowledge of the medical education system in the host country, and you can identify any difference in public health regionally and nationally in the host country. Okay. Also, last but not least, there is the frequent asked questions that is in our fmsa.org data website, both for Scopy and for Scory. It looks like this. So it's very, very interactive. You can click on abbreviations, for example. You click on them and it appears like it shows all the information you might have regarding FMSA. There are other questions like what is the aim of Scopy, also procedural things for Scopy, like how to send my AF, when I'm going to receive my CA. This is all in the frequently asked questions that you can find in the fmsa.org website. Mauro, do you want to add anything?
Oh, no, you pretty much said everything. Go for the frequent asked question. This is very useful.
Yeah.
And next slide.
Yeah, you can do the next slide.
Okay, so we're also this year. Oh, Rodrigo, can you please turn off your sound? Otherwise, it will come back. Thank you.
All right.
Or just slower. Okay, thank you, Rodrigo. So now we have the pre-exchange booklet. It is being prepared thanks to our wonderful international teams, and it has brand new information. It's everything was updated for this year. So next slide, please. Yeah, so that's the booklet. It has lots of information about all this preparation we mentioned to you, and tips and tricks of how you can deal with your exchange. So please make it available for all your exchange students to have it, both your outgoing students and for your incomings. Make sure they read the booklet. It's very useful and actually easy to read. It's not something very complicated. So please make all your students read the booklet. Rodrigo, where are you?
I'm here, and
Hello.
yeah, that's really this meeting was really tiring. It was really long, a lot of information. We wanted to make it like as much as experience sharing as possible, but yeah, I'm really glad you guys could see the cooperation from the standing committees, and I really hope that you can encourage your local committees to keep doing the pre-departure training in the same way. Cool. So thank you very much for all the facilitators. Thank you very much for your attendance.
Thanks, guys.
And that's it. Mauro, you're the best, man.
Thank
Bye
you
bye.
very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
I would like to thank Tommaso that was here also with us, and both Ella, the SCOF director, Jessica, the SCORP director, Carlos, the SCORA director, and Narish, the SCOMI director, and also Andre, our president of capacity building, for helping us with this presentation. So thank you very much for all those that endured till the end. And so I hope you have a wonderful exchange.
Bye.